It was an ordinary day, or so I thought. The kind of day that slips by unnoticed, filled with the hum of routine and the comfort of predictability. I was driving home from work, the sun dipping low on the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the clouds were thin and scattered, like wisps of cotton caught in a breeze. My car radio played a song I didn't recognize, but the melody was soothing, and I hummed along absently. My girlfriend, Sam, had texted me earlier with a grocery list complete with her signature emojis, and I smiled as I imagined her waiting for me at home, probably curled up on the couch with a book or sketching in her notebook. The road was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels almost sacred. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, how the world seemed to pause for just a moment. But then, out of nowhere, a truck barreled into view, swerving wildly into my lane. Time didn't just slow, it fractured. The screech of tires was deafening, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my body bracing instinctively, but there was no time to react. The impact was sudden, brutal, and then silent. At first, I didn't understand what had happened. My vision blurred, and my ears rang with a high-pitched whine. I tried to move, but my body felt heavy, disconnected, as if it no longer belonged to me. The air smelled sharp now, metallic and acrid, and I realized it was the scent of smoke and gasoline. My chest ached, and I struggled to breathe, each gasp shallow and painful. I wanted to call out, to scream for help, but my voice was gone, swallowed by the void that seemed to be closing in around me. And then, something strange happened. The pain began to fade, replaced by a strange, almost weightless sensation. I felt myself rising, floating, as if I were being lifted by invisible hands. I looked down and saw my body still in the car, slumped over the steering wheel, surrounded by shattered glass and twisted metal. It should have terrified me, but instead, I felt a strange calm, as if I were watching a scene from a movie rather than my own life. The world around me began to change. The chaos of the accident faded, replaced by a soft golden light that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere. It was warm, comforting, like being wrapped in a blanket on a cold winter's night. I felt a presence beside me, though I couldn't see anyone. It was as if the light itself was alive, guiding me, reassuring me. I began to move, not with my own volition, but as if carried by some unseen force. The light grew brighter, enveloping me completely, and I felt myself being pulled upward, faster and faster, until the world I knew was far behind me. The sensation was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, a mix of exhilaration and peace, as if I were both flying and being cradled at the same time. As I moved through this strange, luminous space, I began to see glimpses of my life, not as memories, but as living, breathing moments. I saw myself as a child, running through a field of wildflowers, my mother's laughter ringing in my ears. I saw my first kiss with Sam, the way her eyes sparkled with mischief and love. But I also saw the pain I'd caused, the harsh words spoken in anger, the moments of selfishness and neglect. It was overwhelming, a flood of emotions that threatened to drown me. Yet, amidst the chaos, there was a sense of clarity. I understood, in a way I never had before, that every moment, every choice, was part of something greater. The presence beside me seemed to whisper, though no words were spoken, "You are loved, you are forgiven." The light began to shift, the golden hue deepening into a spectrum of colors I couldn't name. It was as if the universe itself was unfolding before me, revealing its secrets in a language beyond words. I felt a pull, a gentle but insistent tug, drawing me forward into the unknown. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the journey paused. I found myself standing or floating. It was hard to tell in a place that defied description. The colors here were alive, pulsing with energy, and the air was thick with a sense of anticipation. I knew, without knowing how, that I was on the threshold of something extraordinary. But before I could take another step, the light around me began to change again, shifting and swirling like a kaleidoscope. I felt a surge of energy, a rush of warmth that filled me from the inside out. And then, with a suddenness that left me breathless, I was pulled back, through the light, through the tunnel, and into the world I had left behind. I woke up in a hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nose. My body ached, and my mind was a jumble of confusion and wonder. Sam was there, her face streaked with tears, her hand clutching mine. "You came back," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief. I didn't know how to explain what had happened, what I had seen. But in that moment, I knew one thing for certain: my life would never be the same. The light carried me forward, not in a straight line, but in a spiraling motion, as if I were being drawn into the heart of a vast, luminous whirlpool. The sensation was both exhilarating and calming, like floating on a gentle current, while simultaneously being pulled toward something immense and unknowable. The colors around me shifted and blended in ways that defied description: vivid hues of gold, violet, and deep blue, swirling together like liquid light. I felt no fear, only a profound sense of curiosity and wonder. It was as if the universe itself had opened its arms to me, inviting me to explore its secrets. As I moved deeper into this radiant space, I began to notice shapes forming within the light, flickering images that seemed to pulse with life. At first, they were indistinct, like shadows dancing on the edge of my vision. But as I focused, they became clearer, more defined. I saw faces, some familiar, others unknown, each one radiating a warmth that felt like love itself. They didn't speak, not in words, but their presence communicated a sense of peace and acceptance that filled me to the core. I reached out instinctively, though I had no hands to reach with, and felt a gentle, reassuring touch, as if someone were holding my soul in their embrace. The journey continued, and the light began to take on new forms. It wasn't just light anymore, it was sound, a symphony of tones that resonated through every part of me. The music was unlike anything I'd ever heard: rich, layered, and alive, as if the stars themselves were singing. I could feel the vibrations in my chest, a rhythmic pulse that seemed to synchronize with my own heartbeat. It was as if the universe was speaking to me in a language beyond words, a language of pure emotion and energy. I closed my eyes, or at least I thought I did, and let the music wash over me, carrying me deeper into this strange, beautiful realm. As I drifted further, the light began to coalesce into shapes that resembled landscapes. Though they were unlike anything on Earth, there were rolling hills of shimmering silver, rivers of liquid light that flowed upward into the sky, and forests of crystalline trees that sang as the wind passed through them. The air was thick with the scent of something sweet and floral, like a blend of jasmine and honey, and it filled me with a sense of joy I hadn't felt since childhood. I wanted to stay here, to explore every inch of this wondrous place, but the light continued to guide me forward, urging me onward. Then, I began to see glimpses of my life, not as memories, but as living, breathing moments. It was as if time had folded in on itself, allowing me to step into scenes from my past. I saw myself as a child, running through a field of wildflowers, my mother's laughter ringing in my ears. The sun was warm on my skin, and the air was filled with the sound of bees buzzing and birds singing. I felt the joy of that moment, the pure, uncomplicated happiness of being alive. But then the scene shifted, and I saw myself as a teenager, standing in the rain, tears streaming down my face as I grappled with the pain of my first heartbreak. The emotions were raw and immediate, as if I were reliving them all over again. The light seemed to pause, allowing me to linger in these moments, to feel them fully. I saw myself meeting Sam for the first time. The way her smile had lit up the room and made my heart skip a beat. I saw our first kiss. The way her lips had felt against mine, soft and warm and perfect. But I also saw the arguments, the moments of doubt and fear, the times when I had hurt her with my words or my actions. The weight of those moments pressed down on me, and I felt a deep, aching regret. I wanted to turn away, to hide from the pain, but the light held me there, gently but firmly, as if to say, "This is part of you. You must face it." As I stood there, surrounded by the echoes of my past, I felt a presence beside me, not a person exactly, but a being of pure light and love. It didn't speak, not in words, but its presence communicated a message that resonated deep within me. You are loved. You are forgiven. The words weren't spoken aloud, but I felt them in every fiber of my being, like a warm, comforting embrace. The weight of my regret began to lift, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. I realized that I wasn't being judged or condemned. I was being shown the truth of who I was, both the light and the shadow, and being told that all of it was worthy of love. The light began to shift again, the scenes from my life fading into the background as I was drawn forward once more. The landscape around me changed, becoming more abstract, more ethereal. I felt myself moving through layers of reality, each one more profound and beautiful than the last. The air was filled with a sense of anticipation, as if I were approaching something sacred, something beyond comprehension. I could feel the presence of other beings around me, though I couldn't see them clearly. Shapes of light and energy, moving in harmony with the music of the universe. And then I saw it, a vast, shimmering gateway made of light and sound and something I couldn't name. It pulsed with energy, drawing me closer, and I felt a surge of excitement and awe. I knew, without knowing how, that this was the threshold to something extraordinary, something beyond words or understanding. The light around me grew brighter, enveloping me completely, and I felt myself being pulled toward the gateway, faster and faster, until the world I had known was far behind me. But just as I reached the threshold, the light paused, holding me there for a moment. I felt a question forming in my mind, though I didn't know where it came from. "Are you ready?" I didn't know how to answer, but the light seemed to understand. It held me there, cradling me in its warmth, as I prepared to take the next step into the unknown. As I stood at the threshold of the shimmering gateway, the light around me intensified, pulsing with a rhythm that felt like the heartbeat of the universe itself. The air was thick with anticipation, a tangible energy that made my entire being vibrate with a mix of awe and trepidation. I could feel the presence of the other beings around me more strongly now, their forms still indistinct, but radiating a warmth that was both comforting and exhilarating. It was as if the very fabric of reality was alive, breathing, and waiting for me to take the next step. And then I saw him. At first, he was just a figure in the distance, a silhouette of light that seemed to grow brighter as he approached. But as he drew closer, I realized it was Jesus, not the stern, judgmental figure I'd been taught to fear, but a radiant being of pure love. His eyes held the depth of the universe, swirling with galaxies and stars, and his presence filled me with a sense of peace I had never known. He didn't walk, he seemed to glide, his movements fluid and graceful, as if he were part of the light itself. When he spoke, his voice was like a melody, resonating through every part of me. "Linda," he said, and the sound of my name on his lips was like a balm to my soul. "You are not defined by your mistakes or your identity. You are defined by love." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that shook me to my core. I felt tears welling up, though I had no body to cry with, and a flood of emotions surged through me: relief, gratitude, and a deep, aching sorrow for all the times I had doubted my worth. He reached out, and though he didn't touch me, I felt his hand on my heart, a gentle, reassuring pressure that seemed to dissolve the walls I had built around myself. "Look," he said, and the light around us shifted, forming into scenes from my life. But these weren't just memories. They were living, breathing moments, filled with emotions so vivid they felt like they were happening all over again. I saw myself as a child sitting on my grandmother's lap, her voice soft and soothing as she told me stories. I felt the warmth of her love, the safety of her embrace, and I realized how much I had missed her. The scene changed, and I saw myself with Sam, the two of us laughing as we cooked dinner together, the kitchen filled with the smell of garlic and herbs. I felt the joy of that moment, the simple, everyday happiness of being with someone I loved. But then the scene shifted again, and I saw the arguments, the harsh words, the moments of doubt and fear. I felt the weight of my mistakes, the pain I had caused, and I wanted to turn away, to hide from the truth. But Jesus held me there, his presence steady and unwavering. "You are loved," he said again, and this time the words carried a new meaning. He showed me moments from my life where I had been loved by my family, by Sam, by friends, and where I had loved others. He didn't condemn me for being a lesbian. Instead, he showed me how my love for Sam was a reflection of his love for humanity. "Love is the truth," he said, "and the truth will set you free." The light around us began to change, the scenes from my life fading into a vast, shimmering tapestry of interconnected moments. I saw how every action, every word rippled through the fabric of existence, touching lives in ways I could never have imagined. I saw the pain I'd caused, but I also saw the healing that was possible, the ways in which love could mend even the deepest wounds. "Forgiveness is the key," Jesus told me. "Forgive yourself and forgive others." As he spoke, I felt a shift within me, a release of the guilt and shame I had carried for so long. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my soul, leaving me lighter, freer. I looked at Jesus, and for the first time, I truly understood what it meant to be loved unconditionally. His eyes held no judgment, only compassion and understanding, and I felt a surge of gratitude that brought me to my knees, not in submission but in awe. He reached out again, and this time I felt his hand on my shoulder, a gentle, reassuring touch that filled me with strength. "You have a purpose," he said, "a purpose that goes beyond your understanding. You are here to spread love, to be a light in the darkness." His words resonated deep within me, and I felt a sense of clarity I had never known. I understood, in that moment, that my life was part of something greater, a tapestry of love and light that stretched across time and space. The light around us began to shift once more, and I felt a pull, a gentle but insistent tug, drawing me back toward the world I had left behind. I looked at Jesus, and though I didn't want to leave, I knew it was time. "Remember," he said, his voice filled with warmth and love, "you are loved, you are forgiven, and you are never alone." As the light enveloped me, I felt a surge of energy, a rush of warmth that filled me from the inside out. And then, with a suddenness that left me breathless, I was pulled back, through the light, through the tunnel, and into the world I had left behind. I woke up in a hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nose. My body ached, and my mind was a jumble of confusion and wonder. Sam was there, her face streaked with tears, her hand clutching mine. "You came back," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief. I didn't know how to explain what had happened, what I had seen, but in that moment, I knew one thing for certain: my life would never be the same. As the light around me shifted and swirled, I felt a new kind of awareness settling over me, like a veil being lifted to reveal a deeper, more intricate reality. The landscape around me transformed once more, the shimmering gateway fading into a vast, open space that seemed to stretch infinitely in every direction. The ground beneath me, if it could even be called ground, was a mosaic of colors and textures, shifting and flowing like liquid glass. It felt solid and yet weightless, as if I were walking on a surface that existed between the physical and the ethereal. The air was alive, with a soft, melodic hum, a sound that seemed to resonate with the very core of my being. Jesus was still beside me, his presence a steady, comforting anchor in this surreal expanse. He didn't speak, but I could feel his guidance, a gentle nudge that urged me to look closer, to see beyond the surface. As I did, I began to notice details I hadn't seen before: tiny glowing orbs of light drifting lazily through the air, each one pulsing with a unique rhythm. They reminded me of fireflies, but their light was softer, more radiant, and they seemed to carry a sense of purpose, as if they were part of some greater design. I reached out, instinctively, and one of the orbs floated toward me, hovering just above my palm. As it did, I felt a rush of emotions: joy, sorrow, love, regret, all swirling together in a way that was overwhelming and yet profoundly beautiful. The orb seemed to be alive, a living fragment of someone's soul, and I realized that these were the essences of other beings, each one carrying the weight of their experiences, their choices, their love. I felt a deep connection to them, as if we were all part of the same intricate tapestry, woven together by threads of light and energy. Of other beings, each one carrying the weight of their experiences, their choices, their love. I felt a deep connection to them, as if we were all part of the same intricate tapestry, woven together by threads of light and energy. Jesus moved beside me, his presence radiating a sense of calm understanding. "This is the fabric of existence," he said, his voice soft but filled with authority. "Every life, every moment is connected. What you do, what you say, it ripples through this fabric, touching others in ways you cannot see." As he spoke, the orbs around us began to move, their paths intertwining in a delicate dance that seemed to illustrate his words. I watched, mesmerized, as the orbs created patterns in the air, forming shapes that told stories of love, loss, healing, and hope. One of the orbs drifted closer, and as it did, I felt a familiar pull, a sense of recognition. It was my own essence, a glowing fragment of my soul, and as I reached out to touch it, I was swept into a vision of my life, not as I had lived it, but as it had impacted others. I saw myself as a child, comforting a friend who had been bullied, my words giving her the strength to stand up for herself. I saw myself as a teenager, volunteering at a shelter, my presence bringing a moment of comfort to someone who had lost everything. And I saw myself with Sam, the love we shared creating a ripple effect that touched the lives of those around us. But I also saw the pain I had caused, the harsh words spoken in anger, the moments of selfishness and neglect. I saw the hurt in Sam's eyes when I had been too focused on my own struggles to see hers, the disappointment in a friend's face when I had let them down. The weight of those moments pressed down on me, and I felt a deep, aching regret. I wanted to turn away, to hide from the truth. But Jesus' presence held me there, gently but firmly. "Forgiveness is the key," he said, his voice filled with compassion. "Forgive yourself and forgive others. Only then can you truly heal." His words resonated deep within me, and I felt a shift, a release of the guilt and shame I had carried for so long. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my soul, leaving me lighter, freer. I looked at Jesus, and for the first time, I truly understood what it meant to be loved unconditionally. His eyes held no judgment, only compassion and understanding. And I felt a surge of gratitude that brought me to my knees not in submission, but in awe. As I knelt there, the orbs around us began to change, their light growing brighter, more intense. They began to merge, their individual rhythms blending into a single harmonious pulse. The air around us filled with a sense of unity, a profound connection that transcended time and space. I felt myself being drawn into this unity, my essence merging with the others, and for a moment, I was everything and nothing all at once. I was the child comforting her friend, the teenager volunteering at the shelter, the woman loving Sam with all her heart. I was every moment of joy, every moment of pain, every act of love, and every mistake. And I was loved, completely and unconditionally. The light around us began to shift once more, and I felt a pull, a gentle but insistent tug, drawing me back toward the world I had left behind. I looked at Jesus, and though I didn't want to leave, I knew it was time. "Remember," he said, his voice filled with warmth and love, "you are loved, you are forgiven, and you are never alone." As the light enveloped me, I felt a surge of energy, a rush of warmth that filled me from the inside out. And then, with a suddenness that left me breathless, I was pulled back, through the light, through the tunnel, and into the world I had left behind. I woke up in a hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nose. My body ached, and my mind was a jumble of confusion and wonder. Sam was there, her face streaked with tears, her hand clutching mine. "You came back," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief. I didn't know how to explain what had happened, what I had seen, but in that moment I knew one thing for certain. My life would never be the same. The return to my body was not a gentle transition. It was a sudden, jarring plunge, as if I had been dropped from a great height into a pool of icy water. My lungs gasped for air, my chest heaving as if it had forgotten how to breathe. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled my nose, sharp and clinical, a stark contrast to the warm golden light I had just left. My body felt heavy, foreign, as if it no longer fit me properly. Every muscle ached, every nerve felt raw and exposed. And for a moment, I wondered if I had made a mistake in choosing to come back. But then I heard her voice, soft, trembling, filled with a mixture of fear and relief. "Linda, Linda, can you hear me?" It was Sam. Her hand was clutching mine, her fingers cold but her grip firm. I turned my head, my neck stiff and uncooperative, and saw her face hovering above me, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Her hair was a mess, her clothes wrinkled, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. But to me, she was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. "Sam," I croaked, my voice barely more than a whisper. It felt strange to speak, as if my vocal cords had forgotten how to form words. But the sound of her name on my lips brought a fresh wave of tears to her eyes, and she leaned down, pressing her forehead against mine. "You came back," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought I lost you." I wanted to tell her everything about the light, the love, the forgiveness, but my mind was still reeling, my thoughts scattered and disjointed. Instead, I squeezed her hand, the simple gesture saying more than words ever could. She stayed like that for a long time, her presence a grounding force as I slowly reoriented myself to the world of the living. The days that followed were a blur of doctors and nurses, their voices a constant hum in the background as they poked and prodded, checking my vitals, asking me questions I could barely answer. My body felt like a stranger's, weak and uncooperative, and I struggled to do even the simplest tasks. But Sam was there every step of the way. Her patience and love a constant reminder of why I had chosen to return. As I began to recover, the memories of my journey beyond life started to settle, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. I found myself thinking about the light, the love, the forgiveness, and how it had changed me. I felt different, as if a part of me had been rewired, my priorities shifting in ways I couldn't fully articulate. The things that had once seemed so important, the petty arguments, the grudges, the fear of what others thought now felt trivial, insignificant in the grand scheme of things. One night, as I lay in the hospital bed, the room bathed in the soft glow of the monitors, I finally found the words to tell Sam what had happened. I told her about the light, the warmth, the sense of peace that had enveloped me. I told her about Jesus, his eyes filled with galaxies, his voice a melody that resonated in my soul. I told her about the forgiveness, the love, the understanding that had washed away my guilt and shame. And I told her about the choice I had been given to stay in that place of peace or to return to her. She listened in silence, her hand never leaving mine, her eyes never leaving my face. When I finished, she didn't say anything for a long time. Then she leaned down and kissed me, her lips soft and warm against mine. "I'm glad you came back," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. So was I. But I knew that my return wasn't just about Sam. It was about something bigger, something I couldn't fully understand yet. I had been given a second chance, not just to live, but to love, to truly love, in a way that reflected the love I had experienced beyond life. And I was determined to make the most of it. As the days turned into weeks, I began to see the world with new eyes. The colors seemed brighter, the sounds clearer, the air sweeter. I found joy in the simplest things, the feel of the sun on my skin, the sound of Sam's laughter, the taste of my favorite foods. I began to let go of the grudges I had held onto for so long, reaching out to people I had hurt or who had hurt me, offering forgiveness and seeking reconciliation. It wasn't always easy, and it didn't always go the way I hoped, but I knew it was necessary. And through it all, I held on to the message I had been given, the message of love, forgiveness, and hope. It became my guiding light, a reminder of what truly mattered. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that as long as I lived with love in my heart, I would be okay. Because in the end, that's all that matters: love. Love for ourselves, love for others, and love for the world we share. And that's the lesson I want to leave you with. Love is the truth, and the truth will set you free.